Told you Josh was flagging two stocks he thinks are about to break out. Number one is Delta Airlines. Tell us more.
Well, so Delta has broken out, and I think the breakout is for real. When you, so I'm not in this name, but when you look at what Ed Bastian had to say when they reported in late October, it really gives you an idea that this thing is ready for a new range. If you go back on a 5-year chart, which I think we're showing you now, of Delta, what you can see is that the $60 level was overhead resistance for this stock right before the pandemic started. And then, of course, like everything changed. But this stock now, 4 years later, challenging that $60 level once again, but being in the best fundamental shape that this airline maybe has ever been in. Billions in free cash flow, huge growth, and just absolutely firing on all cylinders. So I think it's going to punch through those old highs from back in, I guess, January, February 2020, prior to the pandemic, and establish a new trading range. I'm not currently in that one, but it's on my radar. Marriott reported this morning.
Okay, hang on 1 second first. Okay, Marriott's the other one, as you just said. I just want to get some thoughts on Delta before we go to Marriott. You own Delta.
I do.
Everybody knows Marriott now, but that's fine. Delta, you own that, and it's a big position for you.
It is.
Sorry.
And I will tell you, Ed Bastian and his team are one of the...
Once the motor gets going, I mean...
I know, it's just hard to stop. But I can go on and on about Delta because it is one of my favorite stocks. And if you look at what management has done since COVID, if you think about the focus has been on the business travel, it's on the consumer traveler now, the average consumer. They've taken that with their Amex partnership and brought on loyalty, premiumization. They've focused on service. If you've just even done Delta One and you've been to their new lounges. The other part that I think, and Josh hit on it, is in 2 years they will have no debt. But they're spending money back into their business, into their service. And when you look at their competitors, it's JetBlue, it's Frontier, it's Spirit. They are just so far above all of them that this 8 times earnings, and maybe they never get that multiple over 10, but the earnings growth and the cash flow is why you want to be in this company, and a phenomenal management team.
We talked about it during the break. Yep. They're benefiting from some of the troubles at JetBlue and some of the 100%. Other airlines. The consumers, they're gaining the market share. But
you added it.
I was amazed.
You just added it in your rebalance,
Just added it. Delta and United Airlines, 2 airlines. I was amazed at how strong the momentum is in both of these names. 125 names in the ETF. This is a top 10 momentum holding. So Josh is speaking towards the January highs at, I think, 62.40. Pulled back the lens a little bit further. There's your all-time high, July of 2019 at 63.43. The company's got the revenue growth. It's got the great balance sheet. United Airlines as well. Very strong revenue growth at around 7% for an airline. That looks really good. And both of these companies look great on charts.
You used to own, I'm going to get Josh's explanation in a minute, but you used to own Marriott. Personally, if not in the ETF.
Yeah, haven't owned it in quite some time. It underperformed slightly, fell off the radar, if you would, from a momentum perspective. It looks like it found its bottom in August. I'll let Josh speak to that.
Well, it cut its guidance, Josh, right? The earnings missed. But what do you see that suggests it's poised to break out?
Look at the reaction. The stock is like almost unch. What's going on here? This is a stock that was making a 52-week high as recently as October 21st. Had its earnings this morning. I wrote about it over the weekend. I didn't know what the earnings would be, but I was curious to see what the response would be. This thing could go green for all we know. So what's happening here is that, contrary to all the people who sit and look at things like ISMs and PMIs and all this other stuff from the 1970s that no longer predicts anything, if you just walk outside your house, I know it's a really novel approach, if you just talk to people and look at business travel and consumer travel through the lens of people and not manufacturing statistics, what you see is just an absolute bonanza for firms like Marriott that have a tier available for every level of income, whether it's the highest end luxury vacation, business travel, low income, you name it. Marriott is where they need to be. So I think the chart reflects that. You have this 50-day, 200-day moving average crossover, which you know I like. I don't believe in it superstitiously. I just think it's meaningful in terms of like what's the most recent trend. So I think the stock is setting up here. I do want to see it make a new high before I would pull the trigger. So that's about 260. The stock is 256. So
yeah,
we're going to keep an eye on this one along with Delta.
Okay, good stuff.